Hey, welcome to the podcast. This is The Surge Effect, and I'm your host, Mike Surge. This podcast will be talking about anything and everything, life in general to current events and past events, and all things about this beautiful and wonderful world that we live in. And this podcast, well, it'll probably have an effect on you. Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Surge Effect. Today's episode of The Surge Effect, we are going to be talking a little bit about what's going on in our House of Commons here in Canada, and a little bit about the Liberals and what's going on with the Liberals. I'll try not to keep it too long, but before we get started, I always have sponsors, and my first one is Love My Legs, Owen Sound, Grey Bruce. Click on the link below, go and check them out. All the leggings that they have to offer, and they are the only lifetime guarantee in the business. Number two is He Shirts, She Shirts. He Shirts, She Shirts. Head on over to their website once again and look to see what they have to offer. They are more than just a t-shirt company. They have all kinds of different clothing to offer. All right. Also like to put on two other things. Always my BCAAs, branch chain amino acids. Comes in all different flavors, watermelon, lime, blueberry. Click on the link below. Head on over to Amazon and grab yours today. It's fantastic for hydration, for sure. Number two is my Rodecaster 2 Pro, which is my sound mixing board, which does a lot of the heavy lifting for me. All right. Without further ado, let's get into today's podcast. All right, so everyone remembers Don Cherry, of course. Don Cherry was fired. Don Cherry was fired for doing this. And I'm going to play this for you in 2 seconds. This is what he got fired for, if you remember correctly.
To a veteran, I said, I'm not going to run the poppy thing anymore because what's the sense? I live in Mississauga. Nobody wears very few people wear a poppy. Downtown Toronto, forget it, downtown Toronto, nobody wears a poppy. And I'm not going to. He says, wait a minute. How about running it for the people that buy them? Now, you go to the small cities, and the rows on rows, you people love, they come here, whatever it is, you love our way of life, you love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that. These guys pay for your way of life that you enjoy in Canada. These guys paid the biggest price. Anyhow, I'm going to run it again for you great people and good Canadians that bought a poppy. I'm still going to run it anyhow.
Love you for it.
Ron McLean. Wow. So there's Don Cherry talking about that. So I'm going to show you a little clip here of actually what just transpired. This was actually posted. I always like to give a shout out to people that I post on my videos. And this is from Concerned Canadian. And look at that. Palestinian protesters attack RCMP vehicle in downtown Ottawa and force them to retreat. So we're going to play that for you. Here we go.
More RCMP coming through.
This is the RCMP being attacked. RCMP tried to get through Justin Trudeau's office. This is the RCMP trying to get through.
This is in Ottawa.
This is the RCMP in front of Justin Trudeau's office getting attacked. This is the RCMP trying to get through here. RCMP trying to get through behind me. The mob going after them. The RCMP appear to be retreating. The RCMP just tried to get through here. We're attacked by a mob. The RCMP attacked by this mob. The RCMP now retreating. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police retreating. Ottawa Police noticeably absent. Absolute.
So this is what's happening right now in our country, obviously, in Ottawa. Isn't that something? So that was the clip about that in regards to the Palestinians and what they're doing in Ottawa. And, of course, the reason why I played the clip of Don Cherry is because he's a true Canadian patriot. Love Don Cherry. They should have never fired him because he speaks the truth. So when you speak the truth, you seem to get fired Kind of sucks, but that's how people get manipulated by mainstream media, and they get manipulated by all this misinformation and disinformation, all this other nonsense. Let me know what you think about in the contents, in the comments below. Let me know what you think. So speaking of Canadians, this is what this young man did, and this was from this is posted by from Kat Canada, and I follow Kat. She puts on some good stuff. So here's what this young man has done, and he's from Canada. Listen.
So I grew up in Canada. I was raised there, but I will never live there again. Here's why. So I live in Hawaii and a couple other locations right now, and I've left in 2016. And if you're young and ambitious, here's why you should leave too. Canadians, I'm sorry. They just don't think as big, they're not as ambitious, and failure is like
massively detrimental to them.
And don't even get me started on the capital gains in Canada. You're paying between 50 and 67% of the money that you make. I also don't think it's healthy to be living in an igloo for half the year, no offense. I remember going to work when I was living in Canada, it would be 8 a.m. and still dark out, and then I would leave at 4 p.m., this is in the winter, and it would be dark again. Someone tell me in their right mind that that's healthy for the human body. And the real key here is that money just moves exponentially faster in the US than it does in Canada. People invest more, they invest faster, the ideas are bigger, and the US is obviously the global hub of capitalism. I would argue that under its current administration, Canada is the opposite. So if you haven't started your Escape Canada plan, I'd suggest you get started.
Isn't that something? Guy left Canada in 2016. And that just goes to show you why. Because of taxation. Taxation, I'm going to get to that in a minute. I had a talk with someone there recently about taxation, and I was basically saying to them this. When was the last time a poor person created jobs? Think about it. And when was the last time somebody in the middle class created a multi-million-dollar company and created jobs and paid people wages? It's a rhetorical question because the answer is never. Rich people create jobs. And you have to be careful because, like I've mentioned in previous podcasts, they did it in England. They did it in Europe. They taxed the rich so badly that the rich people started leaving because they can go anywhere they want. So these are the people that are paying the base of taxation. I'm going to read you something from the Fraser Institute. And these people are up on top of this, and you can go see this yourself, but I'm going to show it to you in a minute about taxation in Canada. And that way we can sort that out. So here we go with another clip. This is, again, from Cat Canada. And this is Charlie Kirk. This young man asks Charlie Kirk a question, and this is what he says.
I recently moved from Canada. America is great. Canada is screwed up. What would you do if you were Prime Minister of Canada right now?
Canada's a really screwed up country, and it's a self-hating country that prides itself on being polite. And this is a great lesson for those of us in the West. Your favorable characteristics of being polite, nice, and welcoming can also be your downfall. Super polite, okay, we're just going to allow a bunch of foreigners over on our country. Super polite, we're not going to have free speech. Canada's got a big problem. It does not have this, the Constitution, so you do not have robust free speech protections. You do not have Second Amendment protections. So the government is able to do whatever they want. I wouldn't want to be Prime Minister of Canada. I wouldn't last very long.
I recently moved from Canada. America
Isn't
is great.
that
Canada
something?
is screwed up.
Right? And that young man is right. Canada is screwed up. It is screwed up so bad. But people think everything's all peaches and cream, you know? But here is Michael Barrett. And Michael Barrett is a MP. And this is what Michael Barrett had to say. And this is actually right from Michael Barrett's page. I like Michael Barrett. He's one of the few that actually goes to bat for Canadians and does the right thing. Here he is.
Comes from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And this is, of course, dealing with this matter, this latest $400 million scandal facing this Liberal government. And the RCMP confirms that they are investigating this $400 million scandal of this Liberal Prime Minister that has paralyzed Parliament. But they also confirm that they have and are using the documents that have so far been turned over by the parliamentary law clerk. So this, of course, raises questions about, well, why was the government willing to turn over some of the documents, yet some departments refused outright? Some departments have said they're not even a part of the government. which is, of course, an absolutely incredible statement to hear from them. Now, I want to reference another bit of information about redacted records, or the absence of them. Now, the list of departments that didn't comply are typed in a very small typeface on this 11 by 17 sheet of paper, but one in particular stands out. It's the Department of Justice. More than 10,000 pages that they are not turning over. Why won't this Prime Minister's DOJ turn over these documents to the cops? What is so damning inside them that while the RCMP confirms they have some of the documents, these Liberals and their co-conspirators aren't prepared to turn over the rest? What's in these documents? Canadians have a right to know.
So this is what the problem is right now with our House of Commons in Canada. Everything shut down because Pierre Poilievre came forward and told them to give these documents to the RCMP. And then the RCMP turned around, the Liberals turned around after Greg Fergus, who's the Speaker of the House, after he gave them basically House orders to hand over that information. Now they're not handing over the information. They're crying that their Charter of Rights and Freedoms have been abused and all this other stuff. It's quite comical when you think about it. The Liberals talking about people's Charter of Rights and Freedoms being abused, considering what they actually did to the Canadian people in Ottawa when they were up there protesting, and that actually came down the pike that it was totally legal to do what they did. So you can either agree with that or disagree with it, but that's the law and that's the way it is. So here is, speaking of the law, here is Pierre Poilievre. He's talking about the legal systems in Canada. So it was just an interview just the other day. This is what happens with when they're saying about jail, not bail. Here you go.
People take the charges seriously enough, because in talking with the police locally, they say, these are extensive investigations they have to roll out.
I don't think any criminals take any charges seriously after 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP Liberals. They know that even if they're caught, they'll be released on bail within minutes. We saw the guy who shot the police officer last week. He was out on bail after violating his probation orders 24 times. So, the Trudeau catch and release criminal.
Yes, and in the House, Pierre called that guy a dirtbag, and the Liberals jumped on him and said that he's basically infringing on his Charter of Rights and Freedoms by calling him a name. This guy shot a police officer in the stomach. Come on.
Criminal justice system signals to criminals, you can do whatever you want. You can terrorize, you can attack, you can kill, you can rape, and you will be out on bail within minutes to do it all over again. We need to get rid of that catch and release, bring in jail, not bail, mandatory prison sentences to lock up the criminals and stop the crime.
On bail reform, and we know that our Premier, Doug Ford, talked about this last week too, because he's frustrated knowing that the man who's accused of shooting this Toronto police officer had quite a rap sheet, right? So he's saying something needs to be done at the federal level. The Justice Minister saying, well, it's a provincial matter. It seems like there's a lot of back and forth here.
No.
How do you get involved in this? How do you change maybe the directive, if that is something that you would like to see change?
You just have to repeal Justin Trudeau's bail law. It's C-75. We didn't have these problems before Trudeau. He brought in C-75, which brings in an automatic release on bail for, it's called the principle of restraint. The judges are forced to give the maximum leniency to the newly arrested criminal. And so after 9 years of Trudeau, we have a situation where in Vancouver, the same 40 offenders were arrested 6,000 times in 1 year, 150 arrests per offender per year. I would bring in a law that says if you have a long rap sheet, you will be ineligible for bail, parole, house arrest, or probation. It will be jail, not bail, jail, not bail, when Pierre Poilievre and the common sense Conservatives are in office.
So there you have that. That was the interview by Pierre Poilievre literally just the other day. And this is what's transpired in Canada since Trudeau took over with immigration. Here's a chart. Look at this chart. Look at the numbers down here at the bottom. See if you can see my cursor here. This is like 2016, right here. Boom. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. This is when Trudeau took office. Let that sink in. The immigration is out of control in Canada. Out of control. It's off the chain. We have so many issues here in Canada. And the immigration is just off the charts. So I'm going to get back to what they were saying about the immigration the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The Liberals kept talking about it. So I am going to just play this little clip. This is literally the Emergency Act. And actually, I posted this. So here we go. That was a veteran. That was a veteran. Butt of a gun. This was a veteran getting kneed. These are Canadian citizens. These are our fellow brothers and sisters that took a stand against tyranny, took a stand against something that they believed in. They stood up because they wanted freedom. These horses trampled Canadian citizens. So I'm not going to play all this because I'm sure that you've seen it before. It gets out of control. But every time they say anything about the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in our house, they can take a hike because it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. You got to keep in mind what's going on down in the States right now. What's going on in the States right now, as well as what's going on in Canada because of elections. Down in the States, they're trying to put things in place. Like the Democrat Party literally pushed through a bill that illegal immigrants can vote in their country. So like 15, 16, 18 million people came across their borders in the last 4 years since Biden was in his office. Those people get to vote. I don't know how many. I don't know how many they're going to catch, but certain states will allow it and certain states won't. California just literally passed a law. Gavin Newsom passed a law that illegal people, they just have to show up. You don't even have an ID. No ID. Just show up. Just say, yeah, I'd like to vote. Like, their voting system is screwed up. So they just passed this the other day as well. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this. My friends in the States might have. This is from the DOD. It's a directive. It's a 5240.01. DOD intelligence and related activities. Defense intelligence component assistance to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities. This was actually in effect from September 27th, 2024. So basically, not even a couple of weeks ago. I'll just get right to the highlighted spot right here. And it says right there, assistance in responding with assets with potential for lethality or any situation in which it is necessary, reasonably foreseeable that providing the requested assistance may involve the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death or serious bodily injury. It also includes all support to civilian law enforcement officials to situations where a confrontation between civilian law enforcement and civilian individuals or groups is reasonably anticipated. I don't know about you, it's almost like they're setting themselves up for something bad happening or something in the States, or even in Canada for that matter, because Trudeau and Blair, the MP that looks after one of the MPs that looks after defense, they literally said this last year that they've already passed the bill, but most people don't realize it, that if they need to pull in the military to handle civilians, they will. So with that all being said, once again, here is a little clip, and I got this one from Concerned Canadian again. They got some good stuff. This one here is about Trudeau and all his cabinet ministers wanting him to step down. If you haven't heard anything about it, this is an interesting little listens. I'm not going to play all of it, maybe a minute. So here we go.
Question is, if I take a step back from what Scott just said, James, is whether or not there is a set of things, or there are things that the Prime Minister and his staff could do to address that type of discontent short of him walking away.
Yes, but that would have been in 2022. It would have been in 2023. It would have been in the first half of 2024. And they've run out of patience. It's over. And I think what Canadians see is whether it's 5 Liberal MPs, 15 Liberal MPs, 30 Liberal MPs, the people who know him best and trust him most with their careers and their political lives, say that they don't have confidence in him. So the headlines coming out, and we talked about for the rest of this week, is that Liberal members of Parliament have lost confidence in him. And this is on top of course, the two by-election losses and 2 of the safest Liberal ridings for the past century. This comes on top of polls that showed that of the 32% of Canadians who voted for Justin Trudeau in the last election, half to 2/3 of them don't want him to run again. 3-to-1 net negatives, 3-to-1 fundraising disadvantage relative to the Conservatives. It's over, and it's just up for the Prime Minister to decide if he wants to try to find a dignified exit for himself. By the way, while all this is going on, and while Parliament is being ground to the halt, and the Confidence and Supply Agreement is torn up, and the Bloc Québécois are making unreasonable demands, and while all this, sort of drama is happening within the Liberal Party, the public is only going to get more angry and more anti-government, anti-liberal, because we have real issues going on in the world. We're now in our 7th straight quarter of per capita GDP shrinkage. We have, threats of violence continuing to happen, and expanding in the Middle East. We've got the situation in Ukraine. I mean, the world is getting dangerous and darker, and Canada's economy is not moving forward. It's going backwards, and Canadians are impatient with a parliament that's going nowhere, a prime minister that's going nowhere, and now a Liberal Party that's going to be trapped in its...
So basically, this is former cabinet minister says no matter what the Trudeau Liberals do now, they are done. It's time for change. So this guy nailed it. This guy was a former MP, and they all know that the writing's on the wall. It is just a matter of time, and Trudeau is gone. He is out. So listen, I'm going to read you this real quick piece about income tax, because like I said earlier about income tax, and the rich people pay their fair share, but they always say that in the States or in Canada, oh, they need to pay their fair share. So you can go and find this actually yourself. It's on the FraserInstitute.org. Go check it out. It says, according to the study of 2024, the top 20% of income earning families in Canada will pay 54.2% of the total taxes. That's income tax, sales tax, property taxes, etc., etc., to all 3 levels of government, despite earning 46.4% of the total income. In other words, the top 20% will pay the majority of the taxes and are the only income group that pays a larger share of taxes compared to their share of income. The bottom 80% of families all pay disproportionately less in taxes than their share of income, with the bottom 20% paying just 2% of the taxes while earning 5% of the income. So this goes on, but basically, in a nutshell, right, that the top 20% of the income earning families will pay nearly 2/3 or 62.7% of federal tax, provincial income tax, while earning less than 46.4% of their total income. Comparatively, the bottom 20% of the income earning families will pay 0.8% of their personal income taxes. It's a great little article, but you always hear people have this back and forth about taxes and income people. People can have go to courses and everything else, and that person is going to tell them that the middle class people pay the majority. They're wrong. They're just totally wrong. And they need to maybe go back to the drawing board and learn a little bit more stuff so they can give people the information that's correct. And if you don't believe me, go to the FraserInstitute.org article in regards to that. It's right there, okay? All right, so let's, just before I wrap up here, I want to show you how, this is from Benny Johnson. It's a little clip of Kamala Harris down in the States because, of course, they got the big election coming up November 6th. But listen how backwards this shit is down there. Listen.
And when we fight, we win. And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win.
One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government shouldn't be telling her what to do. One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government should not be telling her what to do. What I call an opportunity economy, so that every American has an opportunity to own a home, to build wealth, and to start a business. So every American has the opportunity to own a home, to build wealth, to start a...
Do you get the idea? See how programmed that whole thing is? And that's what she does, because she has to read off a teleprompter, and that's the only thing she can do, right? So all these other smoke and mirrors are going on in the world, right? And especially political stuff. But here's like a feel-good thing from Elon Musk and what just happened the other day, but like nobody covers it. Like no one covers this stuff. This guy, this is from Elon Musk actually, he sent a rocket up into space. The rocket came back down and they caught it in this tower called Jaws. And he actually said he was going to do it years ago. And here's the proof. So here's a good feel-good story before I sign off. This is awesome. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
Is that's amazing. Anyway, wanted to finish off this podcast with a feel-good story, like I said, because, hey, stuff that's going on in Canada and the States, it's enough to make you drink, I guess, heavily. Anyway, listen, thank you very much for watching my podcast. Thanks for listening to what I have to throw out there at you. Maybe you've heard stuff like that before. Maybe you haven't. I don't know. Go check it out yourself. But I really enjoy putting this stuff together for you. Please subscribe and like my channel. It helps with the algorithm. It also helps spread out the stuff that I've done in the past. Much appreciated. So like I've always said before when I sign off, I always like to say that, you know what? Life is tough, and everyone has issues, and everyone's going through something in their life. What you got to do is keep moving forward. That's right. Keep moving forward. And you will be better off for it. Get your ducks in a row, get your goals set, and your priorities, and keep moving forward. That's the key. Once again, everyone, thank you for watching my podcast. And until next time, everyone, cheers. This episode sponsored by He Shirts, She Shirts. Go to www.heshirtssheshirts.ca. Just type in the letters TSA, The Surge Effect. When you check out, Type in TSA for your coupon and receive 10% off your next purchase. Thanks for listening to today's podcast, everybody.